Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis. If you play a stringed instrument, you need to know about Nashville Violins. They sell, rent, repair, and restore all stringed instruments. They have the largest selection of violins in the 9-state area. They have tutors for professionals and kids. Nashville Violins is the place for strings. So thanks to them for sponsoring our show. Hi everyone, it's Emerging Artists. I'm your host, Greta Gaines. Sherry Cothran is our guest today. Hi there, Sherry.
Hey, Greta.
Good having you on the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you for being our re-emerging artist. I know what that feels like.
I understand.
Now, we know each other from the 90s.
We were rock stars in the 90s.
We were so big. You kids have no idea the way we used to like to get it done.
The late 90s.
The late 90s?
Yeah, as opposed to the early 90s, which was a whole other scene.
It's true. We were late 90s.
Right.
Yeah. We were the pre-millennialists.
That's right.
That's right. So you were in a band that I knew, and we would play shows together, and you guys were played on Lightning 100. You were a big deal called the Evan Roods.
Yeah.
For those big fans out there of the Evan Roods, and that's a band that you had with your ex-husband.
Yes.
But now you've reemerged.
I have. It's like a butterfly.
It is like it's like a butterfly on the back of. Oh, it's here on your artwork right here. Where's the butterfly?
Yeah,
it's on the actual CD, which I think is just beautiful.
Thank you.
So you are a pastor now.
I am.
Tell us what's been going on.
Well, after the Evan Roods, I kind of reevaluated, what I wanted to do with my life, and I decided to go to Vanderbilt Divinity and get my Master's of Divinity, so I could figure out how to be divine.
Yeah.
Which never quite.
Diviner.
Yeah.
Because you're already pretty divine.
Oh.
Well, how long did that take?
It took me 3.5 to 4 years to completely do it, and I was working. I was doing community development at the time at the church where I am now pastor, which is an urban church over in West Nashville.
Wow.
On 48th in Charlotte. So.
When it comes to you preach.
Okay.
What's the name of the church?
It's called West Nashville United Methodist.
West Nashville. All right. So you go back. You decide. You wake up one day and you're like, I want to do something different.
It wasn't
with my
quite that.
life. Oh no, it was more of a process.
More like a 2-year, 3-year kind of. What am I going to do? Kind of thing.
Did you feel any kind of calling? I mean, because as a musician, you're obviously a communicator, but this is a different level.
Well, I think the stories that had emerged from my life and the stories that I found in the text and really from my childhood just really began kind of speaking to me, and I found that these women that I was writing about were women that kind of haunted the corners of this text that I'd kind of grown up with and inhabited all my life, but never really heard the stories like I was hearing them after so much life experience,
Wow.
And divinity school, of course, I learned Hebrew. And not fully, but I learned enough to kind of do a little bit of interpretation. And I just rediscovered stories that I had loved, and I fell in love with them again. And some of the women that I wrote about, I'd never even heard of, like the Witch of Endor.
Right. Now, these are all women from the Hebrew text that you wrote songs about on the newest album, which is called Sunland.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you open up, you can see right here, I mean, this is beautiful music, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, it's really gorgeous, and it may be a new spin on spiritual music for some people out there. But this is not only important spiritually, but it's important for sort of the whole history of women in the world, right? So you underneath the songs themselves, you will give where it is in the Bible that the story came from.
Yeah.
So walk us through a couple of these and tell us about a couple of these songs.
So the first song, Seen Through, is about a woman that I had never heard of. Her name is Huldah. And she's actually one of the very few female prophets in the Hebrew Bible, biblical text. And so she ends up interpreting these sort of hidden scrolls that the king finds hidden in the walls of a temple that he's reforming. And the king is sort of like this OCD reformer, he's like hell-bent on, making things to the letter of the law. And she interprets these scrolls, and it's like his worst fears kind of come to life and in her interpretation, but in her interpretation she also kind of sees him as he is and interprets him as well. So she's kind of like a wisdom figure.
And does she get persecuted, or does she get harmed in any way for being a prophetess?
She does not. I mean, she's just, she's kind of like the female version of Jeremiah at the time. She's very little known, and we only see her in these two instances, which are the same story told twice. But
do we have, this is the song that we have a piece of to listen to, right? The song is called Seen Through.
Yeah.
Let's listen to a little.
Okay.
So that was not Seen Through, that was actually the song Circling the Godless City.
Right.
Okay, so tell us about that one.
Okay.
You'll have to go back, you're gonna have to listen to Seen Through on your own.
That's cool.
You can get it at your website, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Let's have that website while we're rolling on it.
Cool. So Circling the Godless City is about a character, Rahab, who many people may have heard of. She's like the town prostitute of Jericho. And you know that old gospel, when the walls come tumbling down. Well, it's kind of about this story where Joshua comes and brings his army, and they actually go to Rahab's place of business, which is where she does her
brothel,
her work. And but the other thing that we don't really know is that she's really providing for her family, her entire family, you know, her parents and extended relatives. And so she kind of convinces these guys, she makes a deal with them, and she says, you know, if I'm going to give you this information and protect you, then you're going to rescue me from this town and from my life and from my
she makes a deal with
present oppression. Yeah, she does. She's good at making deals.
Yeah.
And so
quickly.
She's very clever, and so she makes this deal, and she and they basically rescue her.
Yeah.
And she actually becomes one of the ancestors in the royal bloodline that's sort of traced throughout the Bible. But yeah, it's a really cool story. So it's kind of like it's her version of what happens, and
which is a lot of what's missing from history. Obviously,
right.
Are the stories of the female side of things.
Right.
This album, it just is. You can listen to it over and over again. It's really smooth and silky. But what I love is that when you open this up, and I'm so glad you did include the lyrics. There's so much here.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much to learn.
So
now, do you sing at your church? Do you sing songs from the?
I do sometimes. It's really hard to switch roles.
I know.
You know. But sometimes I do. As the sermon piece, I'll do one of the songs that I've written on the text, and then I'll kind of just elaborate on it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I do that. And we have a lot of songwriters who, you know, try to interpret what we're doing into song, and so it's a really interesting sort of a living, creative environment where we're all trying to kind of interpret in modern ways what's going on. So
well, it's gorgeous. You guys need to check it out. It's called Sunland. It's Sherry Cothran's new album. Tell us a little bit about how Nashville's changed in your mind since we were, you were doing the Evan Roods in the late '90s to now, and how do people in general react to maybe fans of the Evan Roods? Have you been able to pull those fans with you, or making new fans?
I'm just sort of at the beginning of releasing this. I've just released it a couple weeks ago, and so I really don't know. I have run into fans of the Evan Roods, and they're excited, you know, that I'm putting out new stuff. And so yeah, I mean, they're definitely generative fans that I run into, and I hope they like it. I had my Evan Roods band play on it, so it does have a similar vibe to some of the stuff that we're doing, but it also moves in a little bit of a different direction with some Middle Eastern modalities, and it stretches them a bit. So, yeah.
Well, it's really cool. I've never heard anything quite like it, and congratulations on such a gorgeous, important piece of work. Thank you for being our guest today. You've been watching Emerging Artists, and we're going to have you back in just a little bit to perform a song off the album, right?
Yep.
Okay, so stick around and look for that. I'm Greta Gaines. You've been watching Emerging Artists right here at Talkapolis. Microcasting for your city. Talkapolis.